pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. We are back with always interesting things to talk about, and we're going to continue that right now. And I didn't hear anybody about any modifications to the.
I'm not aware of any.
Hard to believe. So if we don't have any modifications, we will accept the agenda as it is, and we will go ahead to public comment. And if there's anyone.
Thank you.
Chris will inform us.
We've got Matthew. Matthew, I apologize. I can't read your last name.
No problem. Scroman.
Scroman. Thank you.
Yes. Hello. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I am a senior at Ithaca High School. I'm here largely because for our participation in government class, we have to attend a public meeting. And we are also encouraged to speak for an extra credit opportunity. And so I would just like to make a few comments for you guys.
Great.
Appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. I noticed on the website that one of the Board of Education priorities is to foster an affirming and respectful culture of excellence, where all students maximize their potential and where educators take personal and professional responsibility for the success of each student. I am a senior here, and I've had countless positive experiences at Ithaca High School, but I've also had some concerning ones, and I just want to speak for a moment briefly about some teacher attitudes. I'm not going to name any names, of course, but I would ask the board to talk to the administration, to talk with teachers and start a dialogue about interacting with students respectfully at all times. Absolutely, teachers have complete right to set limits with students, but I've witnessed on a personal level and also watching peers that teachers have had tendencies to respond rudely, aggressively, and especially in the face of a student's insolence or disrespect, a sort of retaliation that I see as unacceptable. I think that the student and the teacher should be on the same team, and it should be the student and the teacher against the workload, as opposed to the student against the teacher. I think that many teachers have a supportive attitude, but I would like to stress that it should be, like you said, an affirming and respectful culture where every student can succeed without feeling threatened by their teacher, without feeling attacked, aggressed by their teacher. And that's my comment. Thank you for hearing, and thank you for all of your good work with the administration.
No, thank you, Matthew. That's outstanding. We appreciate your coming forward today. And we can move on.
Thank you.
And we will have board responses in just a minute, so don't go anywhere.
Appreciate it.
And to get credit, you do need to stay for a while. So we'll be here for a few minutes. Anyone else wish to speak? I have called out students in the past. Dr. Brown, make sure the football guy gets credit.
Yeah,
okay. All right. And if no one else wishes to speak, we'll move on. And Ithaca High, since Brad's not in LACS, Ithaca High,
they're on trips weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So we appreciate that.
Here.
Well, before we begin our official student representative duties, I'd like to introduce our student reps for next year, who you will be seeing very shortly.
Hi everyone, I'm Asha. Hi, I'm Meredith.
I'm Leo Songer, I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm also a junior, and my name is Leon.
Yeah, so just give them a taste of what it's like, get them ready, and they'll be doing their thing next year, and we're looking forward to it. But also coming up will be the senior trip this Thursday, Seneca Lake State Park. Music, big event is a bouncy castle. Senior class is rented. Catered lunch, opportunity to paint part of a senior mural, get some community, spend some time together, and despite the looming gloom of weather, the threat of rain, I think students are fairly excited about it. It should be a good time. if we go. And secondly, Friday, May 19th at the Black Box Theater, we had a drag show. By all accounts, it was a rip-roaring success. Students got to dress up in drag, walk to some music, read some poetry. It was hosted by our Saga Club, Sexuality and Gender Alliance, and talking to people involved in it, a lot of work went into it, a lot of care went into it, and it paid off. Good show of community there. And then in sports, we had the state qualifying match with Dennis Kang, Aiden Campbell, Felix Sheed, Harris Schwab, and Michael Zhao all attending, doing well at states. Love seeing that. And we have a lacrosse game against Corning this Thursday. Corning is one of our tougher competitions, but they have won in the past, and we expect them to do it again. And the team has been rallying up a solid group of mostly seniors, some underclassmen, to follow our team to Corning, support the team while they're playing there. So that should be a good Thursday event. And yeah.
So I have some updates about proms. So the junior class had their prom last weekend at the Johnson Museum of Art. It's a good opportunity for them to celebrate the end of the year and have a dance, but because it was at the Johnson Museum of Art, there was also an opportunity for them to observe art at the same time with prom. Possibly this is going to become a tradition for the junior class because that was the same venue as they had last year, and it's a really excellent place for this class event. Senior prom is also scheduled for June 10th, and it's going to be at the farmers market outside. Hopefully we're going to have some good weather for that. It's going to be a really good way for the seniors to end their high school career and celebrate the ends for a lot of people of APs and a lot of burdens being taken off their shoulders as they look forward to their careers or college. In other senior-related news, Senior Skip Day, which is a tradition that goes back decades, was amazingly found out by the administration at IHS after students did the majority of the planning on district emails. Possibly not the best idea. So, as one might expect, the administration has sent some very threatening emails trying to get students not to skip, and hopefully people will heed those words of warning. For more information, see my Tablet article on a similar topic. I'm kidding. But if tradition holds, many seniors should be skipping this Friday, or, well, shouldn't be, but probably will anyways.
Okay. We have a lot of events coming up in music as the year rounds out, and our various ensembles are having their final concerts. For band, this year is actually their centennial, so we have a composer for commission, Michael Markowski, who's going to come visit this week and work with our band students, and the concert will be on June 7th at 7:30 in Culp. We also have a choir concert tomorrow night at 7:30, and an orchestra concert next Wednesday, 31st at 7:30. So we encourage members of the community and members of the board to attend. It's a great chance to listen to some music and witness our tributes to graduating seniors. We also have an upcoming event, Her Story. Swiss Strong Women Impacting Society, they have their annual Her Story event at the high school cafeteria. That will be Saturday, June 3rd from 4 to 10 p.m. This will be a great opportunity for our community to come together and celebrate and learn about feminism with guest speakers from Planned Parenthood and other places and fun activities. We also have underclassmen awards and senior award ceremonies coming up. That'll be June 6th and 8th, I believe. And this will be a great opportunity to honor the outstanding students in our high school in various areas before we all graduate. And that's all we have for you today.
Outstanding, thank you. Board responses? And we are 7 tonight, correct? And Pat, go ahead.
I feel conflicted about this news that Senior Skip Day is coming up and we're the board and maybe we're supposed to do something. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town.
So Pat, you are skipping work?
I'm taking an authorized vacation day.
That sounds like language for the Tatler, I think, right? Exactly. So authorized vacation.
It's legitimate. I'm just going to say that I know that none of our fine seniors would be doing anything like that, but if you know of people who are, tell them please don't make any of the many massive mistakes my friends and I did back in the 70s, because it was really dangerous. I'd like to commend the holding of the junior prom at the Johnson Museum of Art, because I think that all proms should have an educational component. And I will also mention that my daughter, who is now 4 years out from her senior prom, was among the pioneering class that held it at the farmers market, and they did it in early May, and you are to be commended for holding it in mid-June. Those are my comments for tonight.
And thank you, Pat. Mark, go ahead.
Well, I would add, having had events at the farmers market in the evening, check the forecast, get some heat lamps. They can really help. I'm personally looking forward to Her Story. One of the organizers had invited me to be one of the speakers because the theme of the event is Women in the World. So I'm going to briefly talk about the 4 years I spent living and working in Turkey.
So, Chris?
I just wanted to respond to Matthew. Thank you for sharing. Everyone needs to be dealt with respect, and one of the things I always say, you can have a conversation without having a confrontation. I think everyone needs to learn how to negotiate those things. You're a senior. I'm sure you didn't first experience this your senior year. I wish you had come to this sooner so we could always, the board doesn't, we're an oversight body, I guess, for lack of a better term. But we do believe in everything you said.
Right, we set the expectation.
Absolutely. And Dr. Brown always says we lead with love, and we want everyone to feel respected and, considered. So I appreciate you coming forward. I appreciate you going the extra mile, get the extra credit as well.
Thank you.
And stick around a while too.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Others? Anyone? You guys are good? Nicole, you're good? I guess the only response I will offer is that certainly respect and consideration goes both ways. So if teachers and staff are respected by students, it's highly likely that they will share that back. So it goes to Chris's. Certainly goes to Chris's sentiments. Ithaca High seniors, folks that have been here for a while, outstanding job over the years. We really have enjoyed the reports and your interactions with the board. For the new guys coming on, don't think all you have to, your only responsibility is just to report out from Ithaca High. We really encourage you to take part in the conversations. You have a seat at the table. You can say, Dr. Brown, I have a question. This is what I observe. What about this or that? You don't have to sit silently while these folks at the table speak, and don't feel you can't have a voice in these conversations. It's one thing I think we have to keep encouraging LACS and IHS to go ahead and have a part of what we do here. That's why you're here. It really depends on personalities. We've had some reps that have been very engaged, and I think we all benefit by that. So we certainly encourage involvement and participation. But certainly we appreciate all that you do and what you're going to be taking on as we move forward. The board is essentially going to be the same next year, so there won't be new faces here because we want to congratulate Pat, Chris, and Sean, who have been reelected, and I do have to congratulate Pat for winning the most votes this time, because Pat is on fire and Pat does rock. So
it's my cheerful disposition, right?
Yeah, exactly. So congratulations. We certainly want to thank the community for their support for the budget. It's critical for what we do in the district, critical for what we do in the classroom, and critical for the student experience. So Dr. Brown may mention it later, but certainly from the board, we're just representatives of the community, and we have one vote, and so does the community come budget time. So we appreciate the vote of confidence and certainly supporting the budget. So thank you all that are listening and all that went out and voted. E.
Just a heads up, we'd like monthly reports on how the bathrooms are working at the high school. Okay?
Rob, can I just make one more very quick comment, which your comments about past student board reps remind me of? I got a letter from Connor Coots a couple of weeks ago.
Great.
A paper letter. In the mail.
I've heard about those.
You mean, was it handwritten?
No, it wasn't. It was typed.
Oh,
And because it's handwritten, I haven't written, or it was typed, I haven't written back to him yet, but I do intend to. So if you're listening out there, Connor, out there in Montana.
Well, as you mentioned that, Pat, I think I did see a picture of Connor somewhere in a photo of something recently, so it made me think of Connor and what he used to bring to the table. But thank you,
So,
Pat.
and current student board members, if you wonder if we remember you, just write to one of us.
Well, certainly write to Pat. Anyway. She's the one that apparently gets the fan mail. All right, yeah. As I said, Pat is on fire.
My husband as well, who is friends with Connor on Facebook, and they often shoot each other messages.
Okay. Maybe we'll move on to the consent agenda. So, are we
I'll move the
good?
consent
Thank
agenda.
you.
Second,
Second by Pat. There's a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say if I can speak to a couple of items.
Please.
You'll note as usual donations, friends at IPEI can't be stopped. Seems like it's every 2 weeks, something there. Also from, I don't know what the Tides Center is, but a donation from them and from the Dolby Match program. We thank you for those. I know you're all used to seeing the food service statement every month and probably don't look at it every month. We did look at it at finance last night. Just want you to know again, they're going to break even on food service. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. You have a chance to say thank you to any of the food service workers. We appreciate it. They do a great job. And we're one of the few districts that don't have to subsidize that program. So be sure to say thank you to all of them. We appreciate it. They'll be coming back next month with their proposal for next year on programs, on their charges and such. And I think that was it. Oh, there's some technology leases that are there. If you were curious what those are, that's actually, I believe it's the first Chromebook redo on there. So that continues to move along.
Replacing Chromebooks.
And the cost continues to go down, which is all good.
There you go. Any other questions? Well, any questions? Are we good? All in favor? That's everyone who is here, minus Sean and Ann. And Dr. Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity to stand here. I'm going to invite Ms. Poole up to the table, but while she's getting set up to share information about one item, I wish to join you in thanking our community for coming out to vote. The proposition number one, the budget was passed, 72% yes vote. So I wanted to say thank you to all the folks who participated in the process, which was a year-round process, and for going out to vote. And the other three propositions, which were all on the ballot, were passed at 81% or higher. So an affirmation of the work that our board and committee has done over the last year with our budget vote for CC. And at our last board meeting, we talked a lot about professional development. We want to follow up on that conversation with a website that has been developed that will go live as of noon on Saturday, correct?
Actually, signing up. This website we're going to share with all the staff tomorrow as a part of an email, so they'll have all staff will have a link to this. This is our electronic catalog. They will have, all staff will have through Saturday to take a look at it. It will be up for the rest of the summer, but on Saturday at noon, we will make all of the options live on My Learning Plan. And we do that because everyone has different schedules during the week when they're working with students, and we say noon on Saturday. As far as we know, no one's working with students, so it's a fair time for signing up because this is a very popular time of year when teachers and staff sign up for summer professional development. So our summer PD catalog has a voiceover of me doing a summary of the slides that I shared at our last board meeting so that everyone could see what we mean by our PD focus and the 8 power practices. So that's just a brief summary, so if, in case someone didn't catch that meeting, I'm sure a lot of people were watching on TV, but just in case, that's on there. And then this is basically 4 different pages, and in a moment I'll have Jen click on one of them, but as I said in our presentation last meeting, we have 3 areas that we're focusing on. It's small here, but each one will click to a page and it'll be a listing of all the PD opportunities. Teaching and learning innovations, culturally responsive practices, and inclusion. So we've looked at areas we want to focus on. You got some previews from the staff, and all those listings are there. This last listing is just a reference to TST BOCE's professional development listings that we really think fit in with the things we're doing. We work closely with TST BOCE's, and they're doing a lot of things that will enhance our work. We have things on here, sessions that are for teachers, that are for ESPs, that are for administrators. We're also going to be advertising through that TST site our inclusion conference, which is July 18th and 19th, which will also be open to parents. So we're very excited about that as well. I'll just have Jen just click on one of these just so you can see this set up. What it is, through the magic of Google Docs, is an embedded Google Doc, and it has all the listings that fit under teaching and learning innovations. Although, as I was saying last meeting, so many of these are really interdisciplinary. They could be in any one of them. But we wanted people to know when it was happening, who was leading it, where it was going to be, if it was going to be a paid session or not. And that's very important to teachers to know, if they're going to get paid for their day, if they're going to get in service, as well as ESPs getting paid. And a description of that. So they're going to be able to browse this, and then Saturday the signing up will begin, and we will probably be adding more workshops right through June, because as people respond back to us and say, hey, I didn't see a workshop on this, we generally try and add it. So.
Thank you. Just want to provide a quick overview of the website.
Quick question. The offerings, cultural responsiveness, inclusion, are those set up so that someone may be able to take more than one, or do they actually have to choose?
No, they could take, we start offerings the week after school gets out, and they go right through the day before they come back. So someone potentially could go to workshops every week this summer if they wanted to. Yeah, we just try and offer them. And a lot of them, there are, I'll give you an example. This one is Quality First Instruction in Primary Grades, Relationships Matter. People can sign up for July 20th or August 20th, because we know sometimes people go away in July. So we're offering a lot of things twice. So people have a lot of choices, and they also can make it fit their summer vacation.
Excellent.
Thank you, Sam. That's all we have.
No, thank you, Dr. Brown. And I will just take 1 second in my comments regarding thanks. I should certainly thank Jennifer Hillman, for our board clerk, for another flawless election process. Again, at 12 different sites, 48 poll watchers, workers that have to be managed and trained, and dealing with the Board of Elections and their machines and others, and getting that, it's a whole process that it is all on the board clerk to get it and make it happen. If we don't have a successful election and the machines don't work, then we don't pass the budget by 72%. So thank you, Jennifer, for all your work, not only during the election season, but all year round. So thank you. So now, Dr. Brown, we'll move on. And we're going to just do quick updates from the work sessions, and Moira, just curriculum, what's going on, and we'll move on.
Is there a reason why I always go first?
You're listed first.
There's no reason I'm always listed first. Alphabet. Curriculum. Okay.
It's the kind
As long as there's a reason.
where it's like the English language thing. I mean, I wasn't, it's not picking on you for any.
Okay.
We'll go backwards the next time.
All right, so the last couple of meetings of curriculum, and curriculum meets once a month, and have been joint meetings with policy. And so we have reached the point in the 4000 series in reviewing all of our policies where there are a group of policies that have implications for curriculum, such as a policy about developing and managing curriculum, policies about selection of both instructional materials and library materials, and homework and grading, and religion in the classroom. So the last meeting we had, when was it? First week in May? Yeah. So we had a joint meeting, and we invited department leaders from the high school. So we had 2 department leaders from math and one from social studies, and not social studies, English and science. And we had a really good conversation. I know they spoke to me and felt like they really felt that they were being listened to, and we got some good perspective and information from them about how they are doing curriculum work in their departments. How do they develop curriculum, evaluate it, and revise it? We also asked some questions about what do you need from us in order to have a good process for continually developing and revising quality curriculum. So it was an excellent conversation, and so we are going to be having on June, what's our next 6th is our next meeting, also joint with policy. Prior to that, though, Liddy is going to invite middle school and LACS department leaders to a meeting to have a similar conversation about what goes on in their departments, in their buildings, and I will certainly attend that meeting, and anybody else who wants to could attend.
Thanks, Maureen. And for our student reps, our new student reps, if you really want to understand how the district works and how the board works and all the work that goes into what the board does and what the administration does, it's really in the work sessions. It's in the committee structure. And you too could have been at a finance and facility meeting last night that lasted for 3 hours. Brad?
3+. 3 hours.
It was 3 hours last night. Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, we right off victory from the budget passing, we went ahead and celebrated with a 3-hour meeting and a pretty long agenda.
There's lots of moving parts.
A lot of things going on. We'll hear some about health care, health insurance later in the meeting. We spent quite a bit of time on that. We spent some time on the APC, the Energy Performance Contract. Stay tuned. We may be doing Energy Performance Contract Phase 2 for a handful of additional items coming. So stay tuned on that. I guess that'll be more middle of the summer. We also talked about I hate to use the terminology smart bond because
it's from Albany.
Yeah, it's from Albany. It's so our first phase of the smart bond has been languishing at the SED for over a year now. So we're getting ready to do our second
smarter
phase
all the time.
before the first one's even out of SED. I think over the course of the next 3 to 4 months, we'll get the second phase submitted as well, so that it can languish in Albany for that length of time as well. So glad the voters did that 2 years ago, and as I said last night, the governor took his victory lap and patted himself on the back, and then proceeded to make sure that the money didn't actually get doled out. He just told us it was going to. He hasn't actually done anything about it. There's 670 districts in the state, and whether 30 of them have been approved so far, something like that. So that's what's going on there. Also looking to the end of the year and projections on reserves and so forth for the end of the year. Hopefully we can keep it to 2 hours next month.
Looking forward to it. Chris, human resources.
Human resources. So we just wrapped up all of our tenure reviews. We had all of the building leaders come in throughout the school year. We processed through our teachers who were up for tenure the soonest to the latest, I guess, for lack of a better term. And this is really a good time where we get to learn about teachers, what they're doing, some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses, and the focuses of the school district. One of the beautiful things about this process is understanding how teachers, I never, in the 3 years I've been, well, actually 4 years I've been on HR, I've never heard focus on the entire child or really identifying leaders and learners so much as I have this year. And the conversation has shifted, and what we look at and how teachers do their jobs have shifted. We always talk in the school district about focusing on children, and Eldra always says, who's looking out for the babies? So, you can really get that understanding of how our teachers are doing that job when we review that during these tenure reviews, and actually how our building leaders are helping groom and develop these folks and how they develop. So we've just wrapped that up. We will be moving to actually, Bob, what are we moving to next?
Summer.
Negotiations, and also hiring, streamlining hiring. So that is the next phase of HR.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Elder, do you want any legislative advocacy updates? Don't feel you have to ponder too much.
I'm going to pass at the moment.
Very good. And policy, Pat,
There's always policy.
There's always policy, Pat.
So we had a policy committee meets twice monthly because there are so many policies to look at, and we are winding down through the 4,000 series. We met yesterday afternoon, and as Moira mentioned, we've been meeting with the curriculum committee, but then on our other 2 weeks we have a standalone policy committee, and the major issue yesterday was looking at a revised policy on library materials selection, which two librarians very kindly attended to talk to us about what the procedure is so that our policy could reflect that. It is the board is delegating the responsibility of library material selection to the superintendent and designees, and the superintendent and designees will be working very closely with the library media specialists who actually go out and select the materials. In the course of this discussion, we referenced our policy complaints about curricular or instructional materials regulation, which is in the 1000 series and gives the public a chance to challenge the presence of any types of materials they find objectionable in our public collections. And we also talked about the de-accessing of library materials. De-accession, which, if anyone read the consent agenda, tonight we approved the de-accession of 116 pages of materials.
From just the Ithaca High School Library.
Yes. We then moved on to just a brief review of some of the other 4000 series policies, which do intersect more closely with curriculum and then took a first look at a newly proposed district health policy, which we will have to be looking at fairly soon. Health and wellness policy, which went through a committee and needs some very close attention.
Thanks, Pat. So that wraps up committee working session reports, and we'll move on to school district business, which we'll finally get to the meat of our meeting, and the 17-18 reorg meeting, 2017-18 reorg meeting. And we're setting a date, Jennifer. I guess that's basically what we're doing. For those who don't know, on an annual basis, at the end of a school year, in the fiscal year, we have to start up again, and a reorg meeting is simply that. It's a reorganization meeting of the Board of Education, and there's a long list of approvals that have to be made, appointing various folks to various jobs in the district, and also a few elections.
Do we know that we have a quorum that day?
That's my question. Is that?
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Oh, you here.
That's not quite a quorum, but
No,
yeah.
I'm here. Yeah.
I will not be. You won't be. You know if you're.
Next month.
No, July 7th.
Friday, July 7th. Friday at 9.
What are our choices?
It has to be the first week, and 4th of July was on Monday or Tuesday?
It's on Tuesday.
I am planning to be out of town the 3rd through the 5th. So.
It's on the 7th.
Yes, I'll be here for this.
Oh, you're right.
But
Sorry.
if we're talking about
Yeah.
something else in that week,
Yeah.
the end of the week is probably preferable to the beginning.
Anyone know? Sean, is Sean stated?
I
Yeah.
think you and I had a conversation with him, and I think at that time he said that was okay, but I don't know if that's still the case.
Right, that was a while ago. Suggestions, alternative dates?
It's always hard to do it that week.
We have no choice.
It's not our, again, state law, right?
Yeah.
Not our
I
choice.
know.
Eldred,
Well,
what's your schedule? Are you don't have to tell the world what your schedule is, Eldred.
That Friday might be possible?
What about Thursday?
No.
Good Friday.
Okay, so this is a voting, do we have to vote on this? Or is it a general consensus that's okay?
I think it's because it's outside of the current approved calendar that's why it's being voted on as a resolution to set the date, because it's for the next school year's calendar.
Motion to approve Board of Education reorg. I will move to approve the Board of Education reorg meeting date and time as Friday, July 7th at 9 a.m. in the boardroom.
Second.
Second by Chris, and we'll go with that, and we can always vote to change in the future. All right, at this point, we will vote on the motion. All in favor? That's everyone. And we'll see if we can get as many people as possible done. So, athletic merger. Montessori for fall sports. I have a list.
He gave it to me.
I have the,
Modified soccer, girls modified soccer, modified girls tennis, volleyball, boys modified soccer, boys and girls cross country.
It says it will not displace any students from ICSD.
right. We've done it before.
Yeah.
I always wish you could just say 1 in this sport, 2 in that one.
Which is usually what comes from Montessori
There's one
at
in
the
this
middle
one,
school.
yeah. I'll move approval of the merger.
Second.
Second by Maura. Nothing new here. We do have to do this every year for every season. Any other questions? Are we good? All in favor? That's everyone. Thank you. And Dr. Brown, we're going to move right into the status on update on health insurance for our employees.
Invite some friends to the table who've been deeply embedded in health insurance conversations in the last few months.
So I will just set the stage. This evening, we wanted to give you a little bit of an update on where we were in terms of sort of removing ourselves from the consortium of TST BOCE's healthcare, and then sort of where we need to be sort of focusing on moving forward. And then we're going to be doing also a little bit of an overview of some opportunities for us that will come our way when we go to self-funding. So Jen, is it possible to get others?
Kate's
Kate's first. So just so you're aware, we did have some deadlines. As a member of the consortium, there is a municipal cooperative agreement that our district, along with the other districts that are a member of that consortium, had to sign a few years ago. It sort of gives us the parameters under our membership, and if we, it describes how we need to go about alerting them if we're, removing ourselves from that co-op. They accepted our withdrawal letter. We submitted that in a timely manner with the deadline. They had their meeting on Friday. The board of the cooperative or the consortium is made up of business officials from all of the districts in TST BOCES except for Candor. The board decided that they would create a subcommittee of the board to determine the rights, assets, and liabilities of both the consortium and Ithaca City School District by November 30th, 2017. So that means essentially they will be looking at whatever funds are remaining in their co-op, looking at those as assets, looking at any potential liabilities, which would be claims that are not yet paid, and creating a sort of a way to determine what those liabilities are for all of the folks, and then that would give us an indication later on, after they determine that piece, how much money essentially would be returned to Ithaca City School District from the reserves and the fund balance that they have there. So that's sort of the one unknown piece. Everything else we sort of have covered. Kate's going to walk you through essentially highlights of the transition plan, and then again it'll come back to me and I'll talk to you a little bit about some future moves that we're contemplating.
Great. Jen, if you could advance to the first slide. So the main thing I wanted to provide an overview for tonight is that there are actually some specific things that we're requesting some board action tonight to move this process forward, and I wanted to provide a background about those and provide the board with the opportunity to ask some questions. So we have our checklist for what needs to be accomplished between now and July 1st to effect this change from what was previously a cooperative health insurance model to now a self-insurance model. So the first is we need to find a third-party administrator. We found one. It's Excelis, and we're hoping that the board is going to appoint Excelis tonight as our third-party administrator. And I'm going to talk in a few moments just about what that role will be and how the role of Excelis will be a little different. The next piece, of course, is that we've ardently attempted in this process to keep all of our unions on the same page with us to make sure that they are aware of everything that's involved in the transition. As we discussed the last time we were here, the coverage that's going to be provided to employees is really unchanged by this transition. The coverage they're receiving will remain the same. The only thing that's changing is the method by which we are ensuring that coverage. So we are nonetheless going through the process of memoranda of understanding with all the unions to formalize that negotiation process. The next thing is our professional services arrangement with E&B, our healthcare consultant. That role is a little bit different than the third-party administrator, and I want to speak to that briefly. Finally, we're going to have to actually create plan documents for all these plans that we're now going to be self-insuring. And finally, there's that discussion about long-term fiscal planning that I'd like to touch on really briefly, so if you could advance. All right, so third-party administrator, really briefly. This is Excelis. What we have in front of you tonight is a resolution authorizing us to continue to negotiate with Excelis regarding a very lengthy third-party administrator agreement. We're looking for the board also to approve the rates that will be paid to Excelis for the services they will be providing. And what will those services look like? Well, the big thing is, really, there are a lot of discretionary acts that are involved in making healthcare decisions. Who gets coverage for what? Is there coverage for a particular provider, for a particular service? All discretionary acts associated with healthcare are going to be done by Excelis. So the board is not going to be sitting here deciding what claims are denied or granted. We're really delegating that to Excelis as our third-party administrator. So they'll be evaluating the claims as they come through, arranging for payment of claims. Then if there's an appeal regarding a denial of a claim, they would handle that appeal internally. If there's a necessity for a third-party appeal, in other words, a neutral appeal that's required by the Affordable Care Act, that's something that they would arrange for as well. And as I said, all discretionary acts. So how are they paid? They are paid a service fee per contract that we insure. So that means each employee and associated dependents with that employee each constitute a contract, and will pay a fee of, that what they propose is $43 per contract, and also some other associated administrative fees that are all in the resolution we've prepared. So contrast that with E&V. As the board knows, the board's been consulting with E&V throughout this whole process as a partner in determining next steps on healthcare. Our role with E&V is going to be a little bit different going forward, but still really indispensable as part of this process, which is E&V will be serving as really a strategic benefit planning partner going forward. And that goes beyond just helping us analyze premium and claims. What they're proposing to do for the district is to assess how we are at meeting our benchmarks, our targets, our objectives. They're also going to be serving as that on-the-ground point for all inquiries that come in regarding benefits. So they actually have a call center in Syracuse that they'll be using to field questions from employees about their coverage. This is something, a service previously provided by the district through BOCES. Their fee structure is a little different. You'll notice in the prepared resolution, we have not proposed a fee structure. The reason for that is the Ithaca City School District would not be paying E&V directly for any services. What they would be doing instead is authorizing E&V to basically collect commissions from all the other moving parts. So they would be getting commissions from the stop-loss insurance carrier, from their pharmacy benefit manager, vendors, etc. So that's the structure. We're proposing that as a one-year structure.
It will all be transparent?
Yes.
Pardon me?
That will all be transparent?
That will all be transparent, yes. That will all be transparent. The actual fee structure is also outlined in the services agreement that we put in front of the board tonight. Next. So the other step is plan creation. This is not something that is strictly required for the district as a self-insurer, but it's really a matter of best practice. It's something we should be doing, which is now that we are operating our own plans, it is essential that we have detailed documents that outline what that plan coverage is. Appeal and grievance procedures in the event that there's a dispute about a particular claim. So what we're proposing to do is I'll be working with E&V. They're going to generate some templates for us based on the coverage we've already been providing through BOCES, and then I'll complete the final drafting and legal review for that, and those will be up and running by July 1st.
And the cooperative didn't have those?
Well, that's an interesting point. So the cooperatives model is slightly different. Recall, and I think we spoke about this more in finance than we did with the full board, but the co-ops model was to actually purchase a plan of insurance. They were not operating a plan in a self-insurance model like we're doing now. And when you purchase insurance, what you purchase is a contract of insurance. You do not actually operate your own plan. So they are not required, nor is it even really a matter of best practice for them to operate summary plan descriptions and plan documents.
So you're arguing that that was a fully insured plan?
It was, yes. Yes.
It couldn't have been the way they operated.
Why
did you need a reserve in a fully insured plan?
And why stop loss, also the question?
Why do you need stop loss in a fully insured?
Yeah, and this is actually, so the, yeah, it is a very good question. E&V has said this is very typical for cooperatives statewide, so this didn't seem to raise any red flags. From E&V's standpoint, what they reported was, they verified, first of all, with Excelis, that in fact the plans all were self-insured, or were all fully insured, not
So
self-insured.
it needed a zero reserve. It needs no reserve for claims.
Because they have insurance.
Because they have insurance.
They are permitted to reserve under the
But they don't need to.
insurance law and the general municipal law, so I'm assuming they were.
But they don't need to. They have there's no potential loss. What are they reserving against?
The benefits are stated within the contract with the insurance
What were they
provider.
reserving? My question is, what did they reserve against?
Wow, this is a very interesting business. That's great.
It is very interesting. So this, of course, arose because Amanda and I reached out to the co-op to say, please provide us all plan documents and summary plan descriptions for all active plans.
And their answer was,
and they said, what is that? We don't have those.
we're fully insured,
Yes, we're fully insured. So we received all of their insurance contracts. Those are lengthy contracts of
Sure.
insurance, so we're using those to generate their plan documents.
Right. Because you have to replicate.
Correct, we're going to be replicating the coverage word for
for no
word.
reason.
Right.
That money
Yes.
that came off the investments went where?
Well, they're just sitting in it. I mean, that's been one of the issues.
So
But
The principal and the.
does that mean everything we paid in should never have been paid out and we should get it all back?
No, not at all. No, you paid in for the insurance and they paid Excelis for insurance, but then they also retained reserves, and what we're learning is they were reserving against nothing.
Nothing.
They're fully insured.
They were, and I'm just devil's advocate on that point, probably to some extent, they were reserving also for fluctuations in premiums. And that would probably be their response to that question, which is, we do that to insulate the component districts from fluctuations in premium costs. That's
Because
probably
we
how
don't
they would
trust
answer
our own components to do that for themselves.
that. Yes.
So they
And-
keep
I
that.
say because we don't trust our component districts to do that for themselves.
That's why you're required.
They shifted the burden away from the component districts to the consortium as the area for reserving.
And they will argue that therefore the districts can budget in a steady rate of fairly
That's
high
correct.
increase over
That's
time, and
right.
it's not going to be 20% one year and
And quite frankly,
it'll be
And what they're paying
we
for.
don't
8%.
have the ability, a district does not have an ability to reserve for health
I
insurance
understand.
purposes.
right.
So I think that if they
Which
were
we're
to
gonna
make
get,
that,
yeah.
to make that argument,
How often did they use the reserves to lower premiums or keep them stable?
almost every year.
They did use it?
Yes,
They would
yes,
definitely document.
absolutely. In fact, if we would have stayed in the consortium moving forward to next year, they had proposed, I think initially an 8% increase, they landed at a 7% increase, they used fund balance or reserves to then bring it down to a 6% increase for the districts. So that gives you a sense that they were utilizing that
And we got off into.
Sorry.
Well, we got off into the reserve
Just asking.
a bit,
Yeah, that's a
but I
good
think, I do want Kate just to reiterate her last point again. So there was a contract that the cooperative had with the insurance companies, and
That's correct.
and what do we have to do?
So what we need to do now is, because we are going to be a fully self-insured plan, we need to ensure that that we have basically a contract that we're offering to our employees that says, here's what we are promising to provide, and that is word for word the same coverage they were receiving
It has to be
under those contracts.
more or less exact to what was.
The coverage has to be
was
exact,
provided,
right, and that will be two-part. It will be both a full fleshed out plan document, and it will also be what's called a summary plan description, which is a sort of smaller, more compact, easier to wrap your head around document, both of which are legally binding documents. So the coverage will be the same, but we will have to basically build those from the ground up because we don't have a model plan to work off of. So I eagerly look forward to
But
that.
you have the contracts that you have to follow.
We have the contracts,
Right.
exactly. Yep. So, and then just the final piece was I wanted to speak a little bit to the long-term fiscal planning aspect of this, which segues nicely with the reserve discussion we were just having. So, as Amanda said, there's going to be this calculation of remaining liabilities and surplus over the next, well, I guess the ambition from the co-op is to have that completed by November. So they technically, under the contract, and have until July 1st, 2018 to complete that process. It's anticipated, based on the information we have to date, that we will be seeing some surpluses out of that process. So certainly in planning purposefully for those anticipated revenues, some of the things that we're thinking about and that we're going to be exploring over the next few months would be healthcare reserve legislation. Why is that necessary? Because as the board's aware, in order to actually set up a reserve, there has to be express statutory authority to authorize a particular reserve. The law is currently drafted, allows us to establish capital reserves for long-term capital projects, workers' compensation loss reserves, incidentally, lots of other kinds of reserves. One of the categories, however, that is not included is healthcare costs. So this is a process actually that some of our colleagues over in Vernon, Verona, Sherrill encountered a few years ago, that the Scarsdale district encountered when they tried to move to a self-insurance model. My understanding is they assumed they had the authority to set up a reserve, and were promptly told by the comptroller that's not, you can't actually do that, you need to pursue an amendment to the law. So what we're going to be exploring through legislative advocacy over the next few weeks is actually advancing an amendment to the general municipal law that would carve out Ithaca City School District in the law to permit us to reserve. And the benefit to that, and Amanda can speak to this far more cogently than I can, but the real benefit to that is in that stability, long-term fiscal planning, and allowing us to really weather the ebbs and flows that come with self-insurance. So that would give us a lot more flexibility. Something else that we're exploring that we may discuss with our unions as well is another mechanism for long-term fiscal planning for healthcare is what are called union benefit funds, union welfare funds. That's a different funding structure where we can actually set up joint funds that are administered by the unions and by the district, where premium is collected and pooled. Premium from the district's contribution share and premium from the employee's share. So that's something else, likewise, we may bring up in legislative advocacy as well to discuss. So that's really the moving parts. I don't know if the board has any questions.
And this legislation is not creating the wheel, you're following a well-worn path.
Correct, correct. What we'd be looking to do is basically just say where the law currently says, except the Scarsdale School District and the Vernon, Verona, Sherrill School District, which may reserve for healthcare, we would simply add to that, and Ithaca City School District to permit us to do the same. And our colleagues, Amanda and I spoke at length with the Vernon, Verona, Sherrill folks, and they reported, not surprisingly, that they had no trouble with this amendment because, of course, we're not asking for any money, right? We're not asking the legislature to do anything except to help us plan more purposefully with our resources that we've been trusted with by the taxpayers. So.
We are Ithaca, so
So we'll transition, obviously with self-funding, where you can see that we are trying to keep track of everything and we move it forward, and we're committed to trying to be as transparent as possible. We have been collaborating with the bargaining units, the labor relations specialists with those bargaining units. We've been looking at their contracts, looking at the contracts that we're leaving, looking at these TPAs, and we're trying to make this all work. One of the benefits of self-funded that I wanted to speak to now, because I think that it's something that will be coming up very soon for us to talk even more seriously, is looking at what we used to do in the consortium around retirees who retired prior to the start of the date of the current contract that is in effect. The bargaining agreements that are in effect. So all the past retirees up until the start date of the current contracts, and how they were sort of treated in the consortium. And quite frankly, they were treated as the actives were, even though many of them, when they reached the age of 65 or above, didn't need the type of insurance that you had when you are an active employee, because Medicare kicks in. And so when Medicare kicks in, right, you get a certain level of benefit with Medicare, and then typically you would try to find a health insurance model that would wrap around the services or supplement the services that Medicare gave you, versus having a standalone health insurance, which is what all of the other consortium members had. And And under the consortium, we had we had a la carte options, but they were limited. And they were very limited when you looked at retirees that were 65 and above. And so one of the things that I just wanted to do as an exercise this evening, and for many of you it is redundant, I want to review with you what we went through at 2 meetings yesterday. One of them was for the labor relations specialists and all of our membership, our leadership of the bargaining units that we have currently in Ithaca. We put out a mass invite, we invited HR staff as well, and we went through, this is a presentation, as you can see, from ENV, our consultants. So I hope I do it justice and do it honor, but I will be putting my own little spin on it. And we then did it again at Finance and Facilities Committee. And so we wanted to bring this to you as sort of, I guess it is a sort of an exciting prospect for us. Mainly because we will no longer have sort of the parameters that the consortium has for our retirees. So Jen, if you can go to this slide. Because this is not my own presentation, I do want to make sure that I have my cheat sheet. I don't typically do this. You know, I think Ed Vaughn and Christina Braga from ENV did a really nice job of sort of quelling any fears. When you talk about retirees 65 and above, when Medicare kicks in, that's already sort of a daunting process. What does it mean? Do I have paperwork to fill out? What happens? Do I have to go to my same doctor or a different one? And so, just so you know, whatever we're talking about this evening, we're going to be talking about a supplemental plan to Medicare that sort of wraps around Medicare, and it's offered by the Hartford plan. ENV went out to a number of providers. Blue Cross Blue Shield was one of them. There was a number of others, Aetna, and then the Hartford came in with really the best product. It's what's called a supplemental or Part F plan. It means that you can use your current doctor. You don't have to switch providers in any way. There is no longer a network, in-network, out-of-network. You actually can use any doctor if they're covered by Medicare. The Hartford plan will apply. If the doctor doesn't accept Medicare, which is very rare, there is sort of a stipulation that they can only charge 15% above the Medicare cost. The Hartford plan covers all of that. So there's no excess charges in any way with this supplemental plan. It doesn't matter if you have a pre-existing condition, that is all covered. The donut hole, which is sort of the gap in prescription coverage, so covers you to a point, there's a gap for a number of days or a certain threshold of money and then it comes back again. There is no donut hole with the Hartford plan, that's actually all covered. And also there's no extra paperwork. Because it is a supplemental plan to Medicare, all you do is when your doctor submits that through to Medicare, there is no extra paperwork for the employee or the retiree at 65. It essentially is just, it sort of kicks in after Medicare stops covering. And then there's really no preventative need for testing. Everything will be sort of better than what we're offering. Based on the bargaining agreements that we have right now, as long as we have an equal to or better than coverage for those that have already retired beyond the start date of this contract, we sort of have an obligation to look at options. So Jen, if you can go to the first slide, I want to just walk through this one a little bit more intensely and then we can go quickly through some of the others because it looks a little bit dense right now. What I want to show you is that on this first column here to the left, this will be sort of the benefits, and you'll see that there'll be a title. They're broken down by inpatient, outpatient, and you'll see different types of benefits that will show up. These 3 columns are really representative of the different bargaining agreements that were in effect when folks went into retirement. And they're really based on, they're all the same major medical, but the prescription plans or the way that we handle prescriptions are different. So some people when they retired, they had a 2-tier prescription plan that was $1 for tier 1 and $6 for tier 2. And then over here you have a $5 for tier 1 and a $20 for tier 2. So you'll see all the slides will sort of go along with these 3 different options upon which people retired with. And then you sort of cross this darker line, and you have the Medicare, which kicks in no matter what, whether they stayed on our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan that we offered them when they retired, or if they went to something else. And so this will be the same for everybody 65 and above. Medicare just kicks in. All right? this is the actual plan that we will be offering if we so choose. And this is, again, one of those options that we have available to us. And you'll see there it's the Hartford Supplemental Plan as I described. And we're basing everything on this current year 2017 so that we know where we can then move forward. We anticipate all of the plans that currently are offered are going to have a 5% increase. The co-op is offering 6%. We actually are moving forward with a 5%. So right there's savings to our retirees. But what we want you to take a look at is this last column on the right. And that is essentially taking the comparison of the plans that we currently offer and comparing them to the Hartford and seeing if it's better, equal to, not applicable, or less than. Okay, and so again, our commitment is to offer an equal to or better than plan than what we currently have. And as you can just see here in this first slide, things that matter to people, right? Like, what is my deductible? Well, it's completely covered under the Hartford. We have a deductible under our current plan. Things like the co-insurance. There's a 20% co-insurance expectation under our current plan. There is actually no expectation after Medicare. So it's Medicare plus this will tell you how well we do. And then you can see that everything else is equal. The biggest part of this, and that NA is sort of deceptive, this actually has some out-of-pocket maximums. There are no maximums here. It's just coverage. It's full coverage. Okay? Jen, next slide.
Wait, no,
go back.
Stay back. Let's just make sure everybody understands.
Go ahead.
Oops, back to that slide.
There we go.
Thanks. So what we're saying is this would go to a plan where there is effectively no deductible.
That's right.
Effectively no deductible, and therefore effectively never an out-of-pocket expense.
That is correct. It is what you would pay in your premium. That is the very last slide.
So even if they were the same premium dollars, if they were equal in premium, and I know I'm not trying to jump to the
I understand.
But even if they were the same premium dollars,
right.
This is a better plan.
This is a better plan just with the first slide, and the risk, there is no risk, right, to this. Right. It's all covered.
I think it deserves to be repeated also what you said in the first slide. No more dancing between in-network and out-of-network.
That's right.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Anybody's ever been insured.
That's right.
In the last 15 years.
It's got to be.
Absolutely. And there's different fee schedules depending on your in-network and out-of-network. I mean, it really, if you go to a specialist for, your services only up in Rochester, once you cross this line, into the Hartford plan and Medicare, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. So again, now we'll try to go through. Thanks, Brad, for slowing me down. I'm always respectful of the time. But I want to make sure that we, just sort of get a sense now. You'll be looking at, you can see a little bit again of what we offer, and then you're going to be looking at sort of once you cross that line, if it's better than, equal to, or less than. So the next slide, Jen, if you don't mind. So again, here are the physician office services. You can see what's covered currently. And then when you look over, onto the Medicare with the combination of the Hartford supplement, obviously we get a better benefit because everything is covered. There's no more 20% copay or co-insurance fees. There's no deductible here, so everything would be covered. And one other thing that I do want to mention as well, and we'll see this in the last slide, remember that under the cooperative and even in self-funded, we don't have the opportunity for people to have a spouse covered and an individual covered, right? We have an option to either be an individual or a family. And so a family, typically they, use, I think it's like 2.4, they usually say. So right there alone, the ability to be able to have just the number of people that are in your family covered is a benefit as well. So I wanted to mention that before we move forward. But as you can see, chiropractic care is obviously, we know that's, especially in Ithaca, it's a very popular service. This actually is a greater opportunity under the Hartford plan than we do have under the current plan. It's actually, maintenance care is not covered under our current insurance, but it is under the Hartford. Next slide. So now we're on to preventative health care services, and you can see here all the things that sort of would be, categorized under this topic. And so you have your routine physicals and your immunizations. And you can see all of this pretty much is the same or equal. There was a question about adult immunizations. It's very comprehensive. I think they said there were a couple hundred vaccinations that are on there. The other thing too that I want to point out here, it says equal, and it seems like there's a redundancy because Medicare typically covers 100% of your routine physical examinations. The Hartford is here mainly because they want to say that if there were changes to Medicare, that this would actually supplant any changes that would arise. And so the Hartford would actually take over and absorb those costs. So if this changed to 80% or 90%, this plan will take up the 100% of whatever Medicare will take over.
And Ed also mentioned that on the adult immunizations, that more things are covered under the Hartford than under
Yes, and they actually, they said that is absolutely the case, that there are many, many more vaccines under
travel internationally.
the right side.
Yes, I can get my yellow fever.
Exactly, 5 shots.
So, next slide, okay? We're now prevented, this is the same continuation, a few more things that are covered. Some of the ones that I think are really appealing to retirees, right, the eyewear frames, contacts, the hearing evaluations. As you can see right now, we really have nothing for vision. We don't have very much at all for hearing screenings. In fact, they're not covered. Medicare, when it kicks in, they're to a point. And then after that, it will follow the Medicare guidelines and it will give you 100% of the costs. After that. So again, everything else is pretty much equal, but right here we have another benefit to the retirees. So that continuing that equal to or better than. Jen? Okay, so now we've switched to inpatient services. There'll be a few of these around inpatient. Inpatient hospital, again Medicare and then 100% coverage after Medicare. And this actually gives you coverage of additional days, and again that's to speak to if something changes with Medicare, they actually give you the full calendar year, they guarantee that. Next one. Inpatient continued, you have some physician and then skilled nursing inpatient. And so again, you'll see these are pretty much equal to what we have currently. More inpatient mental health, that's again equal to coverage, and these will be posted. So some of these are a little bit wordier. We'll have those online for you, but obviously this is if you looked at Medicare, these are the benefits that would be covered by Medicare anyway. Next one. Inpatient substance abuse, same thing, equal coverage. Go to the next one. Emergency care. So we have emergency room, urgent care visits, 100% covered after Medicare. We have the same same coverage, so that wouldn't be a change. Outpatient benefits. So if you take a look here, we actually have a greater benefit on office surgery and a greater benefit on radiation therapy. These are both currently subject to a 20% coinsurance. And then obviously there's the deductible as well. Since there are no deductibles or coinsurances, there are no fees to the employee or the retiree age 65 and over. Outpatient benefits continue. You see here, again, just like radiation, chemotherapy, and then mental health and substance abuse are equal. Other services, so these are all the OTs, PTs, the cardiac care, diabetic supplies and equipment. These come up all the time. Even when we shift the way that we do our prescription coverage, there were issues around diabetic coverage. And so as you can see, once again, we have no out-of-pockets, there's no deductibles because the Hartford plan does not have those. So this is a greater level of coverage. Next one. So durable medical equipment are things like canes, walkers, right? Prosthetics, obviously. This is a greater level of coverage. Again, there are no deductibles in the Hartford. Next slide. Other services continue. This is the first time where we're going to see something less. So if you notice here, we have better physician-certified hospice care. There are no limits if we were to switch to the Hartford supplemental plan. As you can see here, hospice is actually capped to the 5 visits per year. For family bereavement, there's actually no limits if we were to switch over with the Medicare in Hartford. And then dialysis, same thing, it's 100% covered, no deductibles. International coverage, as you can see, it's covered under our current plan. If the switch were made to the Hartford supplemental plan, there would actually be a lessened level of coverage. What we asked EMB to do in this scenario is to explore other options, because again, we were really committed, I think we were speaking for the district to say, we want to give them greater to or equal than on all fronts. And so they discovered that there are many ways to do this, but one of the ways is there's actually sort of an umbrella coverage or an umbrella insurance that a retiree who's age 65 or above could go in, type in the parameters of their trip, right? I'm going for 4 weeks and I'm going to Botswana, right? And they can type it in and they say where they're going and the time of year. It pops out for them essentially an estimation or a cost for that umbrella coverage. They said it has ranged anywhere from $15 upwards. I think the most expensive was like $300, $350, and these were extensive trips. And we felt that as a district, this would be something that we could say, you know what, retiree age 65 and above, go ahead, get that coverage, and we will reimburse you for that cost. The risk to us is not as great, and we would want to make sure that we're giving them better than. And in fact, with that umbrella coverage, they even get travel insurance on their entire trip, not just medical coverage as well. So we do have a question out there that if somebody were to move to a foreign country, I will get back to you on that, and I don't know the answer yet, but we did ask it, and so we will be fully prepared. Jen, next one. Prescription drug coverage. So again, remember that currently we have these 3 different types of prescription plans that people can retire with based on what their contract said. What we tried to do, or what EMB tried to do in the slide, is sort of to mirror the columns so that you could see they would be absolutely equal. If you paid $1 for tier 1 and $6 for tier 2, then they would be identical under the Hartford plan as well. Okay? Next slide. Prescription drug coverage, the lifestyle drugs, they said it was the little blue pill. Prior authorization, we have, actually it's not required in the plan. That's pretty important for folks that they, are told that they have to try this before moving on. Step therapies, that's not required as well. So we have a greater benefit there and equal coverage with lifestyle drugs. And then this one, the rates. So this was the money slide, right? And so, what we tried to do, we asked ENB to try to put this a little bit simpler terms to sort of see the total savings. So what you have to follow along is there's a cost for the major medical portion of everyone's health insurance. That's even for active. So for the retiree 65 and above, there's a cost for that. There's also a cost for the prescription. Currently, those things get pulled together, and this is what would be the premium, right? This is what what it would cost us to offer this plan. Under the supplemental, and again the columns go together, that you could see that when you add up the major medical with the prescription, you get a total. So essentially you can compare, these will be the same, and then you would compare this box to this box, and then the second box, and then the third to the third. On all scenarios, the Hartford plan, although it's a better plan, will be less expensive for both the district and the employee over their course of coverage.
And that's a monthly.
And so
that's monthly.
So this is the total premium for the month. No, this is for the total, because they calculated this as 10% of the total. Because that's what the share is. That's what the share is. That's right. That's right. So this is the total.
But those are all right. I've got to follow along.
Yeah.
So your total cost under Classic Blue 1.6. That's a monthly bill.
So this is $767. Yes, Brad. This is $767 for the single, and then the other option, the family plan.
So
is
then I skip over to the Hartford Plan F rate. That's $534.
$534.
That's monthly. So the total savings. That's the monthly difference.
$233 and $720.
That's the total savings for a month. So for a single person, multiply by 12, and then 10% is what they save. This chart still doesn't make sense to me.
We can get you better. We'll do the rate sheet for you, and we can upload that. I can get them the full accounting.
We can't keep putting monthly and then trying to say annual somewhere on the same page. If you're going to have monthlies, you got to have the annual next to it.
Yep.
Same with the savings, and then put the individual savings on it. This is unreadable. I don't, the total savings makes no sense to me. I have no idea what you're trying to tell me.
So what, just so you know, so for this total savings here is essentially for each of the columns. We took this, what it would cost for the single plan under our current coverage.
Right.
We compared it to the single plan under the same comparative for the Hartford.
And then you subtract it.
And that would be the savings.
So it's $23 a month less for the retiree.
For the retiree.
And that's what you need to get to.
Right, so remember that this slideshow is, I am borrowing this.
I know. But
When
we need to get.
we take this and develop our own materials, we can utilize this in any way that we need to.
Right.
And so again, the folks at E&B have been fantastic of really sharing proprietary information.
I understand. So
I'm happy to make changes once we
But
get
for the
this.
retirees, in round numbers, it's $23 a month for a single, $72 a month.
That's right.
If they're on the family, pretty substantial savings to
Right.
get better coverage.
Right, and I do want to
And
make
to
a
not
reminder.
have any out of pocket.
And if no, in addition to that savings,
That's
there's
right.
no out of pocket. Thank
That's
you.
right. And I do want to remind folks that when this says family here, it's based on the two singles,
Right.
Okay.
Because there is no such thing as a family plan under the Hartford, which also, again, leads to the savings and the significance of that, because you're not paying for
Sure.
2.4 people. There is a little footnote here, and we'll get some more clarification. There's some, by law, the Florida rates are different than if you live in any other state. So they did make a little note there, and that's based on zip code and age and smoking status, and that is if you're a permanent resident of Florida.
There's a lot more people over 65 in Florida.
That's right.
It's just a
That's
target-rich
right.
environment.
Right. What they did show in the chart that they shared with us yesterday is that even if you lived in Florida full-time, with the different rate, it was still a cost-effective program for you versus what we currently have.
Right.
Okay?
So to Myra's point, somebody has got the two people in the family. They're
Right.
going to save $840 a year here, plus whatever they might have paid in a particular deductible in that
Oh,
year.
yeah.
How much they use.
How much they use the
Right,
different
so you use-
services.
Right.
So
There's no additional out-of-pocket. I mean,
I understand.
This
So
is it.
their
This
savings
is
would
it.
be-
At least
$300 in terms of the deductible, at least $300, even if you use nothing.
So you're at 11. Now
Or-
you're at
or
11.
a
Now we're
bare
up to
minimum.
$1,100.
Right.
So we're almost at $100 a month savings. Pretty substantial
I
for
can't
most
wait.
families.
So, there's a question,
sign
Jen,
me
just
up.
one more slide. There was a question, they also were asked about the rate increases. As you can see, like I said, the co-op is going up and the consortium is going up anywhere from 6 to 8, sometimes 10%. We haven't seen a really low increase, and if it was because of the use of reserves. This is before any reserve usage, so obviously if we have a reserve here, we'd be able to buffer increases. And again, you'll see the Hartford and the prescription, those costs would be averaged out, and then you would see a total rate increase. And then finally, Jen, there was one question that came up about, well, what if I'm a former employee, I've retired, and I'm not yet 65, but my spouse is 65? Our insurance, regardless if we stayed with what we have or if we moved to the Hartford plan, it is driven by the bargaining agreement and the person that was employed by Ithaca. So if that person, the former employee is not yet 65, their spouse cannot get coverage from the Hartford. They have to stay with the family plan until the employee is 65. And then once they're 65, they can actually, if their spouse is not yet 65, they can get the Hartford plan as a single. They can have their spouse covered under the single for our current Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. When they turn 65, they would then go to the Hartford, so they see savings there. So both scenarios, even if they had a Blue Cross Blue Shield single and a Hartford single, it's still cheaper for the retiree, for their family.
Pre-existing conditions?
No, they don't. They actually, that was one of the questions. The pre-existing conditions. What if I have a pre-existing condition? There is no pre-existing condition clause to worry about. Everything is covered.
I know the answer.
You guys for the spouse or for the partner?
For both.
For both.
Yes, for both.
Even for the spouse?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's no differentiation for the spouse or partner under this plan.
It's just got to be 65.
9 months and 8 days.
Huh?
Where were you? I needed you.
So this is obviously this is one of those benefits of going a self-funded route. The consortium as written did not allow for a group like retirees to be sort of looked at differently from an entire span of a bargaining unit. You couldn't recognize them as a group. And so we now,
That sounds like a decision they made. That doesn't sound like
it does, and it could be voted on to change it, but the philosophy of a consortium, right, is that the retirees are building up by paying their premium, they're helping to balance the costs of the rest of the membership. So they actually are paying, because Medicare kicks in, they're paying more for coverage than some of the actives are, and they add to the premium. Remember, the co-op is really about sort of building up sort of a solid and healthy base, and a pool of funds to be able to manage any fluctuations moving forward. We're not so much as a district level about building up premium or revenue, because we would hope that we would manage our revenue just like we would if it was capital related or general fund related, right? We build in reserves and fund balance into our budget every year because we anticipate that there will be fluctuations within any given year. We're not about building up revenue. We actually have restrictions as a district on how much we can have, and we get audited on that. Now that the co-op gets audited too, but there's really not a lot of guidance to a consortium or co-op of you're overfunded or underfunded. So when we've asked them, I think the auditor sort of said there was no plan for how much fund balance they should have had. They should have had a reserve plan.
But we now know why.
And so, we have to come up with a plan for that.
You can't measure it if there's no reason for it.
Right, we are not an entity that's supposed to generate revenue.
And then one of the other benefits of doing something like this, I mean, I know this is in the weeds, but from the audit committee, but there's a GASB, Government Accounting Standard Board's requirement that we measure the future value, future cost of post-employment benefits. If we decrease that cost, we will decrease the future value, the future cost of it, and we'll actually have a benefit to our balance sheet, which when we go to borrow, will be a good thing.
We still have the obligation.
We still have the obligation, but we will have reduced it.
Right, it's a measurement of that obligation.
Exactly.
Right. And Amanda, I can't believe there's too many folks that are 65 in this community that wouldn't really like this plan, meaning taxpayers. So it's a very, historically, school districts, have had very good benefits. And so we continue to have very good benefits.
We feel this is actually better benefit than.
Better benefit, but also at a lower cost, not just to the retiree, but to the district.
Right.
And the district is paying anywhere from 80 to 78% of that money.
Right, the district are those taxpayers who don't have that health care plan, even though they are over 65.
So this will reduce that cost.
So, eventually, we would love to be able to, quite frankly, sooner rather than later, try to get to the retirees, to talk to them about some of the, now that we've switched to self-funded, these options that we have available to us, because this was something that we could not interface with them about under the consortium model. So, we're hopeful that a lot of the time this summer will be spent with ENV, with the Hartford plan, really getting information out about options like this so that, we could get a sense that that they will be taken care of even when self-funded and maybe even better.
Right. Continuing to provide opportunities for our retirees for their service. Certainly that's an obligation that we still maintain. We have that obligation for an accounting purpose, but we have an obligation in many other ways as well.
Exactly.
So thank you, Amanda. Somebody turned off the screen, so I guess we're not going to look at that anymore. So do we need to do more on this? But I think with all those 3 hours in finance, Brad, you going to walk us through a few of these things?
Sure. I'm going to move to appoint ENB Insurance Agency as ICSD Health Insurance Consultant as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Second by Moira. Certainly talked a lot about it yesterday and today. Any questions?
Yeah, they've let us submit good direction so far.
We'll hope that continues.
Yeah, we hope.
Move seconded, all in favor? That's everyone.
I'll move
Thanks.
to appoint Excellus Health Plan, Inc., doing business as Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield as the third-party administrator of the district's health insurance plans as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Second by Maura. Again, any questions? There is a fee schedule stated here, but that all will be monitored as we move forward. All in favor? That's everyone. So that's health insurance for tonight, correct? And thank you, Kate. Thank you, Amanda. And we do have BOCE's capital project.
I'll move to approve entering into an agreement for the construction of improvements to various TST BOCE schools facilities as presented in the agenda, as well as the agreement presented in the agenda.
Second?
It's my Pat, and the agreement is attached and in your agenda.
It is.
Any further discussion? We did have the folks from BOCES here a few weeks ago, and we discussed the
And
BOCES.
we've made some changes to the agreement here.
Right. So certainly want to support the ICSD students that go to BOCES, and that's, again, another obligation for our community to support our students wherever they may be throughout the day. And this hopefully will be able to do that up at the BOCES campus. Questions, anything? All in favor? That's everyone. So, Dr. Brown, do you have any other business? Anything?
Meanwhile, before we see one another in this setting, but I know we'll be together hopefully at next Wednesday's event for the Central New York School Association. So look forward to that opportunity.
Very good. And anything else? So there's a whole list of meetings coming up, and we can review that. We do have June 12th, Dr. Brown, the board development work session.
Yes, the board development work session.
So that is a Monday, right?
Monday, we'll get the agenda out to you ASAP.
Okay. But there's going to be that.
June 6th?
June 12th.
12th.
Monday.
What time is that going to be?
6 o'clock.
Does that work?
Right.
Okay. Just wanted to point that out. I thought we had an odd meeting coming up, and it's always odd when we get together. We're developing. It's always good. Anything else?
Accommodations will happen on the 13th at 5:30, correct? So accommodations before the next board meeting on the 13th. And I'm telling you now, there's some special treats and surprises that are in store for folks on that, for this final accommodation ceremony of the school year.
It's been a very good year, Dr.
Oh yeah, it's been a special one. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Anything else for the good of the group? Anything, students, before we go? All right. Okay. Without objection, I believe we're adjourned. I don't see anything else. Thanks, everybody.